Welcome to the Firehouse Roundtable podcast, brought to you by the Ventura Fire Foundation. My name's Peter McKenzie. I'm one of the hosts. I'm a retired fire captain with the City of Ventura Fire Department.
And I'm Jason Kay. I'm an active fire captain also with the Ventura Fire Department.
And we are excited that you are going to spend some time with us at the kitchen table, learning about firehouse issues that we're trying to bring awareness to.
Thanks for joining us as we discuss the issues of being a firefighter, both on and off duty, and how it affects us.
Let's get right to it.
Welcome to the Firehouse Roundtable. I'm actually solo today. Peter had some business stuff that he had to attend to that came up kind of last minute. And today I'm going to be interviewing Chief Endaya, the chief of our fire department, Ventura City. And I'm going to really try to nail him down on some of the stuff that's happening in the department, from some of the issues that we've had in the past to some of the hopeful stuff that's coming up in the future for the department, where the new station may be going and what he sees for the future of the department, get into the strategic plan that he's been working his butt off for the last few months. So we'll see how that goes. He's always seems to be open to talking about that stuff. And I'm sure he's looking for a platform to get his message out so that everybody can kind of see what's happening in the department and where we're headed. So thanks for joining us today. And we'll see how it goes with me being solo today. Okay, so today we have on Chief David Endaya, the chief of the Ventura City Fire Department. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's Endaya, right?
It's Endaya. Yeah, it's been said many different ways, but that is the correct way to say it. Yes, thank you.
So Chief Endaya and I have been friends first for probably 22, 23 years when I was on the ambulance and you were already on the fire department. So if I slip up and say Dave, it's out of zero disrespect towards you or the rank, but it's been cool watching you promote through the ranks and kind of riding your tail feathers to you at the same time. So why don't I give you a chance to introduce yourself and how you came up through the ranks and what your big passions are.
Well, great. Thank you for having me, Jason. And no disrespect taken, because you've known me for 22 years. And quite frankly, that's not how I roll. It is my position in the department right now as the fire chief of Ventura City Fire. But I beg people to call me Dave. Because that's who I am. I just happen to be filling the role of the fire chief and privileged to lead a good group of people out in the field and in administration and prevention. So my story starts a lot like all of ours. I was after college, I went to UC Santa Barbara, graduated from college, and went straight into paramedic school with the hopes of getting a career in firefighter and paramedicine. So while I was at UCSB, I joined a search and rescue team. I got my EMT from Santa Barbara City College, all in the hopes of getting a career going in firefighting. So after college, went to Daniel Freeman Paramedic School, got a job as a private ambulance paramedic, and ended up here in Ventura working for Pruner Ambulance way back in the day, a lot longer ago than it seems these days, but that's where I was. And got to know Ventura that way. And I've honestly been here ever since. So applied around to be a firefighter. In 1996, I got on our transport ambulances that we had back in the day. And then came on as a firefighter paramedic officially in 1997 as a dual function. And then throughout the years, just went through the ranks and enjoyed every single one of them. Honestly, fire chief was never in my scope or in my lens. I loved being an engineer. I loved being a firefighter. I loved being an engineer. I was assigned to Station 5. I love Station 5, the truck, urban search and rescue. That's where I had the best time of all my different assignments. And then I was a captain at Station 5 for many years. Went through battalion chief and then training chief. Thought I was coming back out to the field, and the rest is history. So became the assistant fire chief. And then in March of 2014, I was appointed as the chief of the fire department. So I'm coming up next this month, as a matter of fact, in a few days on 9 years as the fire chief. So been through a lot. Love Ventura. Love the community. And as you know, through ups and downs, good times and bad, I love our department. I treat it as a family, and it means the world to me to be leading such a great group of people and just doing the best we can with what we have, and always trying to improve what we have. So moving forward. On a personal level, I'm now a Ventura resident of about 5 years. Surprisingly, I was a commuter to Ventura for most of my career, both from the San Fernando Valley and the Porter Ranch area. And then I was a Simi Valley resident for a little over a decade. But with the support of my family and at the suggestion of my wife, she was like, we really need to get up to Ventura. And she was right. She was right. So following her direction, we've moved up to Ventura. We've been here for a little over 5 years now. And so having everything centered in Ventura is great because Kimberly used to be a teacher. She was a primary school teacher. She retired. We've been married over 20 years, and now she's working at a ophthalmology office while Grace is in college. And Grace is our daughter, who's 20. She'll be 21 this year. Hard to believe. And she's a sophomore at UC Santa Barbara. Yeah, really, they're the ones that have kind of kept me going through all of this. They have lived through every promotion and watched me stress my way through the fire service. Couldn't have done it without both of them, and very much appreciate that they are here as my support system as I maintain the position and look forward into the next steps of my career, whatever those might be. But yeah, so that's the home where we live and what we're doing today. So yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. What was it about Ventura? I know that you like Ventura. I know that you have a passion for Ventura now. I believe you said you started somewhere else in Lateral, right?
Yeah, so I was on a private ambulance actually here, and then I joined our Ventura City Fire Ambulances. And in the a little over a year that we had it, I was offered a job as a firefighter paramedic for Santa Barbara County Fire. So I went up there to get myself in the door with a safety position, which was great. I love Santa Barbara County. It was awesome. But I just made a lot of friends and really gotten to know the Ventura City Fire family back in the day. And they had frozen their hiring at the time. So I was still on probation, but out of the academy for Santa Barbara County Fire. And I got a call from the chief here, Chief Downs, that said, hey, we'd like to offer you a job. It was a lot, it's a lot to Lateral. It's a big risk, but it really, at the time, there wasn't really even a question. I had an opportunity to come back down here. So, I had learned about Ventura driving through it back and forth while I was a student at UCSB when I came home on the weekends or during the holidays. And I just love the vibe. I love the feel. I love the small town. And I had done my paramedic internship with LA City in a real busy station in South Central LA. And it was a great experience, but there was just something about a smaller department that was definitely a better fit for me, where people knew each other and knew each other's families. And between the city and the department, that's just what I was really drawn to.
So talk about why you decided to make it all the way to the top. I know you said that you didn't originally have a plan to become fire chief. And I think a lot of guys, when they start, they kind of say, man, my goal is to be a captain. That position is so cool. You still get to go on to fires. You're supervising. You get to make some decisions and some change in the lifestyle in the department that you work in. What is it for you that drew you further into that leadership role?
I think it was an interest and an internal obligation to the organization itself, right? So you have the best laid plans. I really enjoyed where I was. We're in a small department, so promotional opportunities come up only now and then. And it was really about my home life and my family. Grace was very young when I first promoted even to engineer, and Kimberly was working full time as a primary grade teacher, and being away was difficult. So I don't have to preach to that. Everyone who works in public safety and public service knows how difficult that can be to juggle. And I think as the responsibilities came up, for engineer, that was definitely for me. I'm not a born engineer, so I had to study really hard for that. That was a big commitment that impacted Kimberly and Grace. For captain, I really wanted to lead. I really wanted to be a supervisor. I did feel somewhat of a natural personality that could lead and do a good job at it. I was nerve-wracking because I think that's the big leap to go to supervisor. For BC, it was just timing. To be honest, I think I've told a lot of people the story. Again, with family, we actually took a 10-day vacation to Palm Springs, and it happened to be right when the battalion chief application period was happening. And I was with Kim and Grace, and on the third or fourth day in Palm Springs, Kim said, okay, that's it. She said, we're going to go out to dinner tonight. And she said, and tonight you're going to tell me something positive about becoming a battalion chief. I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, you've told me the last 3 days, all I've heard you talk about is why you want to stay a captain at Station 5, and the difficulties of becoming a chief and how that's going to change family life and your life as a father and your life as a husband. And, she said, there's got to be something good about it. And I said, no, there is. And so we did talk about it, and that's what we have our better halves for, is to kind of center us a little bit. So when I got in there, I really enjoyed it. I loved the position. I was still operational, still going on calls. But I think that's when I started looking at the tea leaves and panicking a little bit. And when you start to look at our department and the numbers and the size of our management team, we started seeing that some people were going to be retiring and leaving. And then you start having the conversations with your BC or with your AC saying, what are your intentions? What would you like to do? And I think for AC, I started off as acting assistant chief. It was a good role, good for me to learn. I enjoyed being in there. I enjoyed running operations. And then when it came to the actual chief position, honestly, it's a blur. It's such a dynamic step and something that you really just can't even describe when you're considering it with your family and the impact it's going to have and how long it was going to be. Even if I had eyes on it, which I didn't, the time left is tremendous. And I thought, can I be effective? Is it right for the organization? Do I have what it takes, to get us a few steps farther down the road than where we are today? And how long will that take? So it was really a lot of soul searching, talking to the family and looking at the organization. And then I will say at that point, I got really possessive and I knew we were going to look outside, which is fine. There was going to be a nationwide recruitment. And I thought, I've given 2 decades, of my life to the city. I may not know how to do it perfectly and I may need a lot of help along the way, but my heart and my soul is genuinely committed to this agency and the people that comprise it. And I'm going to give it my best shot. And that's when I thought, I don't want someone outside who's just dying to become a chief come in here versus someone who's willing to try my best and see what I can do and if I can make a difference. So it was not a clean, easy path moving up. And there was a lot of hesitance, but that was because I respected the positions so much on the way up in rank.
Yeah, that makes sense. What you said before about getting possessive, I felt some of that, and I've seen that in a lot of the guys that talk about promoting, especially to captain. I think when it comes to promotions or above, they say, hey, I'm thinking about promoting. And then the next thing you know, it's, I'm going to be number one. Like I'm going to get this job and I'm going to go all in for it. And those are the guys who, I'm sure you feel the same way. Those are the guys who you want to promote. Those guys who are really reaching for the stars and are going to grab it by the horns.
Absolutely. I think there's a humility to things when you're not presumptive, or egotistical about getting there. But then, we're all firefighters, right? So there's an alpha in each of us that's just, all of a sudden when you get challenged, it's, well, hold on a minute, and you definitely want to put your best foot forward and show your best game. So absolutely, and you see that. You see people go, I'm not sure, or I'm hesitant. I don't know if it's time. And then all of a sudden you encourage them. You tell them why they can do it. You get a lot of phone calls of people, and when they get there, it is definitely okay, now that I'm actually a contender immediately, which is what you want. Like you said, those are the employees you want where you go, when they see the opportunity, they're after it 100%. There's no 80%. Let me see how it goes. 90%. I hope I do well. It's get out of my way. You're my buddy, but now you're my competitor, and I want this and I'm going to show you why I'm going to get it.
Yep, for sure. So I think you may have said this, but how many years have you been on the fire department now?
So I joined the fire department officially in 1996 as a single function, limited term paramedic. And then in 1997, I was sworn in as a firefighter paramedic.
In that time, let's talk a little bit about changes in the fire service in general that you've seen as you went through the ranks. And then specifically, maybe after that, talk about changes and you use your field of vision has changed as you became a fire chief. So talk about what happened, the changes you see in the fire service throughout that time. And then when you made it to chief, the changes you see from your position as well.
So I think the changes in the fire service, mostly it's just how broad of you and I have spoken many a time in our careers that even having a patch that says fire is just a misnomer, right? Our patch should kind of say, anything other than the active commission of a crime department, because it doesn't matter if people see something, hear something, smell something, there's an actual emergency, there's a concern that there's an emergency. The idea is that the fire department can come and if not solve the problem or mitigate the emergency, it's direct you where to go in order to get there. Throughout my career, the biggest changes, I think, are just the expectations placed upon firefighters, placed upon what we do, what we can respond to, what we're called for, and then the call volume. Just the call volume alone has just increased, and that's been our mantra. That's been my mantra since long before I was chief, is that there is just this trend where back in 1988, when we built fire station number 6, the fire department was running under 6,000 calls and having under 6,000 incidents annually. And here we are in 2023. And last year, we had over 18,000 incidents and about 22,000 incident or unit responses, which is how many times each of our units rolled wheels onto the road to assist the community or regionally. And I think that it's been juggling. The change is having to stay efficient, stay healthy physically and mentally, stay efficient with our fleet, stay efficient with our facilities, all while our workload has just gone up exponentially with these responses and what we're responding to day after day. So I think it's really been watching the workload increase while we certainly haven't tripled, doubled, or really even increased our staffing. We have recently, but if you take away the last, let's say 24 months or the last 36 months, we definitely hadn't increased our staffing with that workload. So, and then as chief, I think, there's one speech topic I've provided at academy graduations, and I talk about the pyramid. And I talk about, if you think about the structure of a pyramid and what your viewpoint is and what you see is, as the chief, I'm at the top of the fire department pyramid, right? And if it's a 3-dimensional structure, I can see kind of down all the sides of the pyramid. And so I'm looking down and I can see what each of the sides is doing all the way to the bottom. And it's supported from the bottom, right? A pyramid is not going to stand without a strong base and then building upward. And as you go upward, there's fewer and fewer bricks as you make your way to the top, to where my viewpoint is broad from an altitude that not everybody else has, just based on experience. And what I've often referred to is, it's not about my intelligence level or what I know, it's my vantage point. And if you took anybody that's in the pyramid, in the fire service pyramid, and put them up at my vantage point, they'd very quickly see and have to deal with what I deal with. And what that requires is a tremendous amount of trust of the people who can't see around the pyramid or to the other side of the pyramid. And sometimes I think, it's very clearly and understandably, what's Endaya doing? Or this doesn't make sense. Or if I were up there, I would do this. And that may be true, but also I know people. And I think I go, yeah, if I put you up there, you'd be doing the exact same thing, because you would see what I'm able to see and you'd be juggling what I'm trying to juggle to the best of your ability. And I think that's the piece that's so important in a fire family, is that, when I've hired people, I tell them, I say, there ever comes a day where you're sitting back and you go, what is that guy doing? What is the chief doing? I promise you one thing. It may not be what you would do. It may not make a lot of sense to you, but it is not ever in any other vein than for the best for the department, for the people who make up the department. So for their quality of life or for their ability. And it may be a snail's pace getting there. It is not something we can fix overnight, but it is always something that we're trying to work on feverishly. So it's a combination of trusting that it's being worked on and also knowing that the person at the top is not some special individual. It's just another firefighter who happened to promote, and they're doing the best they can given what they have to make sure the agency is taken care of.
It's still a government, right? So it's still budgets, and it's still answering to city managers, and nothing happens quickly. I'll get direct with you, and let's talk about this pyramid and that you can see down all sides. Let's talk about what's happening. What are we going to do with the increased call volume that you just talked about that's increased triple fold in the last is it 15 years, 18 years or so? And what is I know there's the strategic plan that council put into play, and you're working on day in and day out, you and Chief McDonald. So most of the listeners are Ventura City firefighters. There's a lot of listeners that are from surrounding agencies. Can you give us some kind of a glimpse as to what you're excited about in that plan or kind of the future? And then also maybe what exactly we're working on, and if you have any kind of what's next and where we're going to kind of ease that call burden on the crews right now.
Sure. So I think the strategic plan is something that was a long time coming. And what happens is, like, you talk about government, and especially city government is different than like county's government, right? And how it's run and what's available and how you're funded and how your budgets are run. And the strategic plan identified small increments, much smaller than a chief would want independently, right? An independent chief who had total control over everything. Smaller than a fire department would want, because no point is there any realistic expectation that the fire department can say, hey, we need 9 firefighters, which are going to compromise 3, 3, and 3 of each rank, right? 3 engineers, 3 captains, 3 firefighter medics. It's going to cost this much money and we need them next year. And what was happening over and over was, I think it was just a very expensive proposition, whether it was adding a station, adding a vehicle, how much vehicles cost today. And when all those things go in, the strategic plan is a 5-year plan that is a template. It's a benchmark. Nothing is guaranteed, but the fact that we got our last strategic plan approved with consultants presenting with me was more than we had achieved. We had a binder. We had a binder of probably 12 different studies, at least 5 of which were third-party, I'll call them costly studies, that dove deep into our department, our operations, our fleet, our facilities, when they had been built, what was needed looking forward, a 20-year plan, a 30-year plan. But they really they were acknowledged, but it was always, how do we do it? There's no real way to achieve that. We acknowledge you have needs, and it got added to a binder that former Fire Chief McPherson put together finally, was all the studies into a binder. It was a difficult journey to look at the department deeply, to look at how we were operating, what our funding was, what it should be. And I'll say the 3 main areas are obviously staffing, and then our fleet, and then our facilities, and then using things like technology, innovation, different deployment models on how we're going to move forward. And it looks at it each year to add a position here, a position there, because that's not normally how fire departments increase. And I think the attitude that we took as an agency, and I took as the chief, was we will take what we can get and we will make the most of it to benefit the community. We will then build either additional response units. We will build additional capacity to start sharing this load of these unit responses of an increasing call load. And then for a long time, from Chief Brock to Chief Hansen to now Chief McDonald, I know that countywide, there's a look at the no call too small theory. I know that gets frustrating. And I know that we respond, and there's a lot of calls that we go on that we just have to go on, that may turn out to not be an emergency. But there are some where we need to figure out, how can we just not go on that call? I think that remains a challenge. I just talked with the Chief McDonald the other day, and I know that they're working on it and saying, I think we're reaching a point where we're not the only agency that is absolutely bursting at the seams with call volume. In addition to just call volume, we're looking at our staffing. We are adding staffing, or at least that's the plan. And again, there's no guarantee there, but we at least have a template so that each year when we start our budget process as a city, the fire department, at least through 2027, has a plan to say, here's what we talked about. Here's our vehicles. Here's our staffing. Here's our facilities and our stations. As far as progress on that plan, we have weekly meetings where we cover what we're working with Public Works in our facilities to address things from doors and fire-rated glass and exit plans and walls and exhaust and sewer lines and things that have just been these decades-long problems that we're finally addressing and fixing, that were deferred, which I'm really happy about, because that's a quality of life thing. Our HVAC systems, things that a lot of us felt should have been around for a long time. And it was a tough go. It was a really tough go. So our facilities are being addressed. Our fleet is expensive, but we're working on that. That we just had a midpoint inspection for our next ladder truck that's coming this year, which is great news. We're down to one. We've been down to one since we lost one to an engine fire out at Station 6. And then when it comes to staffing, we're plugging away with these positions that we've asked for here and there. We're happy to try and launch, innovative units with 2 people with, and again, there's nothing in writing or in stone yet, but we acknowledge that we're not just going to get an engine, free and clear. And so we're building up with Medic Engine 7, Medic Rescue Engine 8, 2 more positions to those 7 people. And that's at least a full-time engine, independent of any other funding source. And so we're trying to build up our staffing to share the load. And then we're obviously looking outside. So right now we're in the middle of a SAFER grant application where we were supposed to be told between May and September of last year whether we got the award or not. Well, we just found out in February of 2023, we've gotten the award and we have 30 days to take it to our city council to have it approved. And so hopefully for approval to accept the grant. And that's when the wheels really start turning on how to deploy and how we're allowed to use those personnel. We applied for 13 people. We're certainly going to be looking, obviously, to add units to the field, full-time units. That we're hopeful for an acceptance. And then we have a small but tight time frame to figure out how we can utilize those personnel to recruit and hire. It's a tremendous lift on the whole department. Everyone will be affected in trying to make that happen. But we're hopeful that, we have a period of performance that starts August 8th for the SAFER grant. We're allowed to start earlier, but there's a tremendous amount of parameters that we have to meet. And then that goes for a full 36 months to cover the salary and benefits of 13 firefighter paramedics. So, it really comes down to everybody working together on the strategic plan that was built independent of any SAFER grant application because we didn't want to rely on the fact that we have a 36-month on-ramp to figure out how we're going to keep that staffing and how we're going to keep those units out in the field, whether it's in the form of another SAFER grant at the end of those 3 years, a combination of a SAFER grant, and the city being able to find funding for some, if not all of those positions and marrying those two together at the 36-month mark. But that'll be coming up as we launch this, looking down the road.
That covers what I was asking. I'm going to get asked by the crews for sure. So I'm going to ask you, do you have any kind of a rollout on what you'd like to see or what you're pushing for if we can get the 13 personnel on board? And then second to that, Station 7, do you have any kind of plan or hope for how that's going to look and if it's going to be a 24-hour rig or if it's going to be a day car or if it's going to be squads, or what are you hoping for?
What does the rollout look like? I would say it's potentially a combination of any of the things you mentioned. I would really like to see, and I've said this publicly before as part of our strategic plan, one of the first things we should address is a full-time Engine 7, and then I said I would be willing to explore a lot of other things after that, but establishing a full-time 7th engine would be paramount to starting things off. And then whether it's maintaining Medic Rescue Engine 8, whether we utilize personnel to launch a full-time squad, do we explore a 40-hour engine, a 40-hour Medic Rescue engine? So we have that second support company, which is real huge. Ideally like to see for sure something full-time, if not a couple of full-time units, and then potentially throwing in a combination of a 40-hour unit. That could be a 40-hour 2-person squad or a 40-hour engine like Medic Engine 7, in addition to having Engine 7 go full-time, so then that is actually genuinely not set in stone yet. So Station 7, we looked at a couple of different options. Right now, I'd be willing to say the best option is still Alessandro. That also is not carved in stone. This is the first time in my career that money has even been dedicated and actually expended to that effort in looking at soil and looking at potential RFPs for temporary facilities, permanent facilities, what it looks like down there as we develop that site, with our classroom down there now that has utilities. And regardless of what we do and independent of SAFER, I'm looking at Alessandro as a really good site for even a temporary facility. And when we say temporary, this is the fire department and its government. And we know that things take a long time, no matter how much effort is behind it. These things just don't happen overnight. So when we're talking about a temporary facility, I don't even mean a year or two. It's going to be several years. It's going to be 5 years. And it's not even just a facility that's going to be considered to be, a tent. We're talking about a real temporary facility. So I'll call it, a permanent temporary facility. That's actually a very nice structure that can house units. And when you look at our fire facilities and equipment master plan update, it tries to address the location of Station 7 and any future movement of where 2, 3, and 4 would go, with the likelihood of 1 and 6 not moving anytime soon. But where 2, 3, and 4 could be relocated in today's world versus in the 50s where they were serving when they were built. So I'm super hopeful. I've seen more movement on Station 7 than I've ever seen in my entire career here. And I'm hopeful to keep some momentum behind it of looking at a temporary facility, if SAFER does go through, of potentially housing a unit or two down there, and then seeing how that goes and getting the data of how effective a location it is. But as long as we keep this moving forward and we address these things on an ongoing basis, I really feel like over the next 3-5 years, we can really start to change the course of where we've been for so long, to going somewhere different, and finding a realistic and sustainable way of getting there.
Yeah, I know that Station 2 has over 3,700 unit responses this last year. It wouldn't be such a bad thing to split those up maybe and give them another engine if that's where Station 7 is going to end up. Station 2, I think, is continuously our busiest in the last however many years, 10, 15 years since I've been there. I appreciate your insight into some of that operational stuff. I am going to switch gears on you a little bit. I think we made it through most of my fire department and crew type questions. Our foundation started out as something we could be a nonprofit with and support some of the fun, cool things that the fire department does on the side. But what's happened with the foundation is we've realized there's kind of this void where the mental health aspect continues to be an issue in the fire department. Some of the stuff that you talked about just now is hope, right? And there was a long time where there was a lot of grind going on for Ventura City because we were kind of held at that same, this is the call volume. You're going to keep going for it. You're going to keep your as great of an attitude as you can. But there isn't much happening for relief, kind of maybe in, I'd say, 2015-ish. So since that time, I feel like we've made some really big strides in the area of hope. And I'm excited to see what's happening coming up with these guys. So I think the information you gave us was kind of as much as anybody could know for sure at this point. But when it comes to the mental health aspect of the foundation, what we found was not only the firefighters, but the families as well weren't really being seen for some of the issues that were happening. And it ended up becoming this big issue where there were more suicides in the fire department than there were line of duty deaths. So the foundation kind of took on this role of, we're not only going to support each other, we're going to financially support each other. We're going to support the peer support team. So I'm wondering, from the fire chief's side, can you talk a little bit about if you see any of those effects? And then if you have any kind of a budget for mental health for your firefighters, if that's something that worries you at all, if there's some kind of a project that you're working on, or kind of updates specifically towards that, because our foundation does deal with a bunch of family as well as firefighter mental health issues.
Absolutely. I actually appreciate you bringing that up. Firefighter mental health and behavioral health is key and extremely important. I know we have our peer support team, and then we have our I'll call it like a counseling program. And the city had an EAP program. I think we've learned, especially even over the last 5 to 6 years, that mental health is incredibly important and very real. And I think the effort to break any stigma of needing mental health assistance or counseling assistance or seeing a clinician, I'll be the first to tell you, I back it up 100% for the impacts of what our job, the toll it takes on our personnel as first responders, police officers, military personnel. What we see on a daily basis is very difficult to quantify and to comprehend if you haven't actually done it. But as far as the department, we're actively right now, we had what I will call, an improved mental health program. They unfortunately went above and beyond their capacity. And so we found ourselves in a bit of a lurch, an urgent and sudden lurch where they weren't available to us as an agency. So we were approached with a couple of options. We exercised that option as quickly as humanly possible to go with a service that is a designed for public safety service and to make them available to our members. So right now, just in the last, I would call it 60 to 90 days, we've come to an agreement where it's available to the members of the fire department immediately through June. And then I say June because in July, one of the things we're doing is going for a full budget request to continue this program annually. That is far more comprehensive, far more focused on first responders. This is an organization that's helping other agencies locally, both law enforcement and fire. And I'm happy to say that we're in it right now. And I say temporarily only because we grabbed them mid-year when this other issue occurred where we didn't have what we had. They're going to be with us through June. And then hopefully in our new budget, we'll have a budget that has an entire section dedicated to this new program, and it's being supported by our human resources. It's being supported by our city manager to work toward getting that in the budget. And then as far as our peer support team, we've never had a line item budget in our operational budget, and we are also putting in a request to have a budget there for peer support team members, whether it be for training. There were some discussions that I had on the peer support team with past and with current members to try and get something in the budget that at least supports their training or the team itself when there are needs. And it's not a tremendous amount of money, but it is a decent amount of money to put toward the team in addition to the money that we are trying to get into the budget ongoing for the actual counseling and the mental health program, so that there's just a 24/7, no one is ever alone, and that they have somewhere to turn. We take this with us everywhere we go, and making sure we address it and making sure people don't find or aren't led to dark places is probably more important than we've ever realized. And I hope that there is so much light shown upon this issue as we move forward, and that it never, ever goes away, because I think it's taken way more of a toll than any of us realize.
Yeah, I think I have a terrible call for every single holiday at this point after being a paramedic and a firefighter for the 25 years now between the two. One of the things that we're hearing with mental health and that people are seeking treatment for are not only the terrible things that you see, but the amount of you can't go home, you're mandated today. And then you call your wife, right? So I think part of the hiring for the SAFER grant is part of the push towards getting the staffing that we're hoping for. And then I think that you see that we need so that we can have less mandates and less staffing issues and all of that. So I want to touch on that with the mental health stuff and what the foundation's supporting. A couple podcasts ago, I guess it was a couple months ago now, I talked about driving through Ventura with my family, and pretty much every corner I go, oh, this happened there. Oh, this happened there. And you look next to you and your kids and your wife are like, hey, we're good. Like,
right.
You can stop telling your terrible stories now. When you drive around town, it's the crosses. So you go on a horrible call. Somebody dies, usually either somebody got hit by a car or a traffic accident. And for the next 6 months to a year to maybe more, you drive by a cross, and it's something that somebody's family's put there out of respect for them. But every time I go by those crosses, I remember the smells. I remember the sights. I remember what these guys were looking at. I remember the treatment that we did and how hard we worked for somebody who ultimately life boils down to just a cross on the side of the road for at this point. So yeah, I mean, we can all relate. What you're saying rings very true.
Hey, this is Joe Booth from the Ventura Fire Foundation. To learn more about the foundation and our programs, visit our website at www.venturafirefoundation.org. 100% of our funding comes from generous donors. And if you like what we're doing, I encourage you to become a donor. It's very easy. Just go to our website. Again, that's venturafirefoundation.org and click the red donate button at the top. Whether it's $5 or $5,000, every donation helps ensure local firefighters thrive.
If there's anything else you want to hit on, let's talk about that real quick, and then I'm going to move on, if you're done, to more lighthearted topical stuff that I know the old Dave being a chief. Let's talk about, first of all, is there anything else you want to hit on a serious note between mental health, between the department? Do we get all the stuff out that you were hoping to get out today too?
Yeah, I think from a department standpoint, one of my challenges, is you and I personally have talked about this a lot, Jason, is being able to communicate out to the department. And that is definitely one of my largest challenges that I have found as the chief that wears on me, is my ability to get around to stations and just visit with the crews. And, when I get half an hour on my calendar, I literally drive to Alessandro, even if it's for 20 minutes. When I go, oh my gosh, I don't have to be at City Hall for, 30 more minutes. I'm going to go to Alessandro, poke my head in, and then jam up to City Hall. And, it's a calendar that is just, it's necessary, but very frustrating at times. And then reaching out, I asked, one of the things that I'm really appreciative of the Chief McDonald for is I said, we have got to get out. There's so much going on and there's so much good, honestly, that's happening. I'm really appreciative of his updates that he's been putting out that kind of say, hey, it's bullets, but here they are. And here's everything that's going on here, and here. And I've gotten some real positive feedback there. I try and reach out individually a lot to individuals when a baby is born, when a task book is signed, when a promotion is garnered. I don't need anyone else to know that I'm reaching out, and I'll just reach out and say, hey, great job. Congratulations. Thanks for what you're doing, because I do care. And it's just the ability to get out and sit down. And so many people are like, man, come to the station, have coffee, just sit down. And, I just want people to know it's not lip service saying, oh, I'd love to. I go, I would love to come. There was, I forget what I was out there for recently. Oh, I know what it was. We were going by, Kim and Grace and I always visit on Christmas or Christmas Eve, and we just come to thank everybody for working. And, we go around, we spend our day just touring all the stations. And, it was funny because, there were new chairs at Station 6. And so they're like, and it was Benny. So he's like, oh, come in, sit down, and so we sat down, but it was the greatest thing ever to sit in a chair, lock it back and just talk for a while. And, I wish so much I could do that, more often. And it's just, I know that's words and it's not actions, but it does mean a lot to me. And I want people to know it is not like, Chief doesn't care. Chief doesn't want to talk to us. If I have a chance to get out of the office, talk to human beings on the fire department and hang out at the training site or BC House or anywhere, I do my best to take advantage of it. And it is a constant struggle, but it's just something, it means a lot. I truly care about the people on this department and who makes it up. I wish I could have more time, and I'm constantly working to try and find ways to make that work. So yeah, I just wanted to say that, it is something that is very heavy on me and something that I wish I could just change on a dime. And it's not as easy as maybe it might seem.
Well, I know that you're a social guy. I know that you enjoy talking to people. And I remember as a captain and even as a firefighter, I don't know if I was fourth man with you for a while, or if maybe I was even an intern at some point when we worked together. But it's always been, you're very into socializing, being personal with people and personable with people. And that's got to be tough to then step in a role where 90% of the time you are where you are right now in an office by yourself doing admin work. So
exactly.
So on that same note, I'll just go into it. What's the best rank? You've had them all. What's the best rank?
Oh my gosh. How do you answer that question?
Just for yourself. It's not general. What's the best rank for
me?
Yep.
I had a really, really, really good time as a captain. I enjoyed engineer a lot. I was lucky to be at 5. I was on the truck. I enjoyed being kind of in the field, you're in the middle, right? So I had a couple of crew assignments where I had, a firefighter and maybe a captain who the captain had to put a lot of attention into the firefighter. So as the engineer, man, I just did my job, right? I did my job, and it was almost like carte blanche. I was a good engineer. I did my checks. I did my documentation. I was competent on calls. That was actually a fun assignment, especially at 5. I loved being at 5. But I think as a captain, I really found a niche in building a crew, in building camaraderie. I matured a lot because I learned things the hard way. You know, sometimes I handled my crew appropriately and things went great. And sometimes I didn't handle them appropriately. And I learned what it was to get talked to by a BC in the front office, you know, and that matured me up a little bit. But I do think I learned a lot and matured the most in a good way, you know. And again, like I spoke to the academy that's in right now. When I talked to them recently on their first day, I said, you know, who you are and your character is really born from your adversity and your mistakes and your difficulties. That's great that you had successes, but I think who you become is forged in your adversity and how you overcome difficult times or mistakes, or how you become better at not repeating something. And I think I developed the most in the years I was a captain, both on the calls I went on. You know, I was a captain with Lock and Cheetah. I was a captain on strike teams. I was a captain on a lot of interesting stuff out of Station 5, which you're super aware of, you know. And 5 is just a different vibe altogether, right? You have twice the number of people, so the kitchen table is twice as fun at dinner. But I enjoyed BC a lot, but that was a really short-lived assignment for me because I got thrown into training at a time when I had no idea I was about to get thrown into training. And then the rest of it is just history. I mean, I thought I was going to go back to the field as a BC, and that didn't happen. And then the next thing I knew, I was an acting assistant fire chief. So I think I would have really enjoyed battalion chief as well, in the field as an ops, you know, BC, and maybe getting a couple of task books signed off and having some deployments. Cause I did enjoy that a lot when I was able to do it. But, you know, you just learn a lot, as you know, when you're that supervisor role, and a lot of things land on you at 2 a.m. when, you know, do I call my BC? Do I not call my BC? And it's all on me now. So, you know, that I always talk to new captains and go, you know, hey, how was your first commercial alarm at 2 a.m. when everybody else wanted to come back, and it's all on you, you know? And
doesn't it make you mature when you all of a sudden are responsible for other people's lives? Call that cheesy or not, it's realistic and it's real. And when you are the one who decides if we're going inside that building that may fall over and may burn to the ground, or if we're going to stay outside and then you're going to lose people's property, that matures you real quick. You promoted early to captain like I did. I was 30 and I was looking next to me, and it was, you know, a 50-year-old. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, great, this guy's going to tell me what to do. So yeah, I can relate. You mature pretty quick. So another one was favorite station. I assume you say 5?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with 5 on that one for sure.
Okay. Who was the best cook?
Ooh. Oh, man. Gosh. That's a tough one, to be honest. There were a lot of good cooks in that day when we actually still got to eat some meals sometimes. We had some good holiday meals. I was kind of a barbecue guy. I was less kitchen. I was way more barbecue. Mine involved, most people will say, undercooked steak, because I'm a rare guy. So the only guy that ate my steak okay was John Duff. Everybody else threw it back on the grill. So, but I would say
Duff was a good cook himself.
Oh man. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He was the only guy. I remember when Miles ate my steak the first time I made it, he goes, "Are you going to cook that?" And he took it back outside at Station 1 and threw it back on the grill. Yeah, Duff was the only one who ate my steaks the way I made them. So, you know, I'm going to have to go with the gluttonous cook, where it was just the most filling, like overwhelming amount and type of food. So, yeah, I'm going to have to shout out to Grant Ellison on that with his breakfast. So
nice.
Sunday breakfast.
Grant Ellison's breakfasts are legendary.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the Grant Ellison breakfast on Sundays at Station 5 were pretty legendary. And, pretty overwhelming at times. So,
and I can ask you this innocently because I don't think we were ever assigned to a crew together. Give me your favorite crew. It could be present guys. It could be guys who have retired. If you can look back and go, man, if I had it to do over, I would make sure I was with these guys. Give me a few of those guys. Is it the Station 5 guys and or what?
Oh man, that's tough because that's like asking me to build a Frankenstein, right? Of like who would your ideal crew be? I think at 5 we worked really hard. I worked alongside Van Man as a co-captain, and then Mendoza as a co-captain. And that you talk about different environments. You can imagine Van Man and I being as OCD as we both were. That just drove people crazy on Sunday cleanup day. And then when it was Mendoza and me, I mean, that's a whole different vibe because Mendoza was not like Van Man. And so my OCD drove Dave crazy. And, you had 2 captains going 2 different directions, but it was, no, I think building a crew at 5 is really hard because it takes a long time to get there and things have to fall in the right place. But I had a lot of people come through, that were either rookies or were there temporarily. I could name off 10 or 12 people quickly who were there that we had a great time. But I think, the most, when I say the most dangerous crew, I just mean like, oh man, the chemistry and just the Station 5, there was the point where it was me, Neary, and like Ellison and Manzano. And then it was Van Man and Daryl. And then their firefighter would switch off a lot. And there were times where it was Maples, Mukes, Sean Hughes. You go through a bunch of those different ones, and the dynamic at 5, you can just picture it. If you know the personalities, it was just nuts, being there. So favorite crew, I learned a lot from Robert. Robert's also the guy that got me in trouble with my BC. So I matured a lot because of Robert. But having him was like having a second captain. Same with Daryl. I don't know. My 5C crew, when I ended and promoted to BC, it was a pretty tight crew. We worked really hard to get that crew together and keep them. You talk to Westbrook, he'll tell you he landed there and out of the academy. And so he had his whole academy reputation where his year with us was difficult at best, trying to go, I make one mistake in the academy, and he goes, and it's sticking with me the whole year. So between Westy and like all those guys, it was fun. And then I had great times at 6 when I was out there with McCarter, and, I was working for Bartosh. I had Doug Stewart out there for a while before he went back to Oxnard. We had a good time. My rookie year was at Station 1, and I loved being on the Avenue. So that was fun. And, I navigated Miles and Duff and Mike Vaughn and still somehow got through my rookie year here. So
isn't it crazy to think about how many people went through your crew at 5? I do that on a regular basis when I go, oh, that guy who's getting promoted to engineer, he's been on my crew. That guy who's getting promoted to captain, he's been on my crew. That guy is promoted to BC, he's been on my crew. It's crazy how many guys just cycle through that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. 5 is a clearinghouse in a lot of ways where you've worked with almost everybody at some point, whether they were on a temporary assignment or, they got bumped for a rookie at another station or whatever it was. 5 definitely gives you a history here of how many people you work with just by numbers alone.
Did you or did you not see where this is going already? Did you or did you not put a stink bomb in my room in my internship 21 years ago? And I know the answer already.
Did I?
You can either confirm or deny.
I'm going to go with I can neither confirm or deny on that one. That one I'm not sure about. Maybe I did.
So can you give me a fun story to kind of close out our time together? And I'll let you think about which one you want to talk about. If you want to lead in, we could talk about the time that you and Heidi were at Station 1 on the ambulance and couldn't wait to be firefighters. That's one of my favorite stories, and the engine crew went out. But go ahead. You pick one of your favorite favorite stories.
How did you remember that story? Oh man. Okay. So the Heidi story was Heidi and I were on the ambulance. We were single function paramedics. We both desperately wanted to be firefighters. And we were sitting at the station one day, and we were on station 1C shift with Vaughn and Benson and Greg Andrews and Benson. And they popped a call, an engine call, something, dumpster fire or something. So they go out. So Heidi and I have this smart idea of, hey, let's pretend we're firefighters. And so we had been training. This isn't like on a whim. We had been training on the reserve engine. We'd been taking the reserve engine out with the crew, and we were pulling lines and, catching hydrants and stuff. And so they were out. And so we thought, hey, let's pretend we're a captain and an engineer. So we hop up in the fire engine and we start it up. And we start the fire engine. We're like, hey, check it out. We're going to be firefighters someday. And we're totally excited. And we hear the engine clear the call, and they're coming back. Well, I go, okay, we'll turn it off. And Heidi goes to turn off the engine, and she couldn't turn it off. And I go, what do you mean you can't turn it off? I'm going to shut the engine off. And she's pressing the button, and she's pressing the button, and she can't shut it off. And so you had two of us just in an absolute terrified, mortified panic. We're in the station. The engine is running. Engine 1 is coming back to the station, and we can't figure out why. And we're screaming at each other, going, "Turn it off! Turn it off! Turn it off!" And she's trying to turn it off. I'm trying to turn it off. It won't turn off. And oh my goodness, it was just we finally got it turned off, and right before the engine came back, and then they pulled in, and of course they smelled the diesel exhaust, and they didn't say anything. And then like a while later, we asked Greg Andrews about it. And of course, at the time, we didn't realize there wasn't enough air built up. And so the engine was going to stay on until the air built up so you could turn it off. And was that the Heidi story you were talking about? Because I know of another one. And I'm thinking, was that the one or was this the one?
That was the one.
Okay,
you
good.
said they came back, and I believe that it was a dumpster fire, and they all smelled like smoke. So it was harder to smell.
It was harder to smell. But yeah, so... where do you go with favorite story? Jeff was one. That's just a fun singular story when, you walk in and I'm like, hey, where's Jeff? I literally just needed to find Jeff and I'm looking for him. Okay, Jeff, Lottie, where are you? And I'm walking around station 6 and I walk into the bathroom because that's where you check, right? Someone's either showering or in the bathroom. I'm like, where are you? You're not in the dorms. You're not in the day room. You're not at the engine. So I walk in, and as soon as I push the door open, you hear all this cluttering going on in the bathroom stall. I'm like, what in the heck is going on? And it was very clear he was not in the bathroom stall using the bathroom. So the door was unlatched to the stall and everything. And I pushed the stall door open, and Jeff's standing in there in his uniform eating a breakfast jack from Jack in the Box. And he didn't want me to catch him eating a breakfast jack in the bathroom because we had been kind of giving him a hard time about his diet habits at the time. And so he had run into the bathroom to inhale a breakfast jack, and he heard me coming. So then he ran into a stall. And then from that day forward, for about a year, the name Jeff was replaced with Jack. So, we called the sandwich a breakfast Jeff, and Jeff in the Box, and Jumbo Jeff, and everything else under the sun. So that was a fun story too. But gosh, no, there's a lot of station stories. I know you talked to Miles, and I heard from Charnel that was interesting when you asked him to start telling stories, and there's the ones you can tell and the ones you just go, yeah, I'm gonna pass on that one. But
yeah, thank goodness we have editors, right?
Oh man, I can't even imagine. But there's a lot of fun stories. I mean, he'll kill me for telling it, but it's well known. We Van Man and I were the captains at 5, and Westy was our rookie, and we took Westy out for his final manipulative exam, and Van Man and I had been testing with him and practicing with him, and we were super proud of him, and we're like, we got this. So check this out. Look at what Dave and John can do. And so we go over to the church on Telegraph, and we're there, and Rod Smith is there, and we go to test Westy, and he starts off and he's doing great, and he's identifying stuff in the engine. Well, then Chief McPherson shows up, and for whatever reason under the sun, Westy he was just terrified of Chief McPherson. And no, I don't know that there was really even a good reason. It was just, he just got under like his skin, like, oh man, And so when McPherson pulled up, I'll just tell you, the whole test changed, and it went to it just in a handbasket. And we're like, wait, we've got this. And so John and I are going, man, are you all right? Are you okay? Because he had nailed it. Like the shift before, he had nailed it, and we knew he was ready. And we're just going, and Don's looking at us now as captains, and Westy's getting stressed because he's, starting to like just torpedo into the ground. And so we said, no, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay, and just between, not being able to find the pull cord, the T handle on the chainsaw, and just other stuff. It was really funny, and he got it together. And of course, obviously he passed and he did fine. But just like I go, man, as a captain, you're going, no, man, he's ready. He's ready. And that was an interesting one, as captains. And then, gosh, man, there's so many, but, I'm sure you've heard a whole lot. So
Westbrook is probably one of the most technically proficient guys we have. And I'm so glad you told a story about him, because he's currently on my crew as my engineer, and his wife is on the Fire Foundation board. So that fits in perfectly.
Oh, well, we had fun together. I mean, it was, he got his one thing in the academy was he ended up, his one mistake, right? Everybody else, we had auto extrication day in the academy, and he ends up spray painting the car that they were extricating with his academy number, and he sprays it on there. And I don't know why, but the cadre leaders just thought, hey, what are you doing? And then for the next, I don't even know how long, he'll tell you, it was, who's the tagger? Who's the tagger on the crew? And all he was doing was what everybody else was doing. But boy, he pulled the short straw that day in the academy, and it was game on after that. So yeah, it's good stuff. So everything they were like, I don't know, Westy, why don't you do it? You're good at tagging things,
Yeah, you're also not allowed to say short.
Oh, of course
around
not.
Westbrook.
Yeah,
he gets really upset. Anyway, Dave, Chief Endaya, it was great to talk to you, man. It was fun, and I appreciate you being on the show.
Absolutely. Very much appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate the efforts of the foundation ongoing. Looking forward to the awards and the firefighter ball and the recognition for our folks. And as always, I genuinely have an open door policy. Not a lot of people take advantage of it, but I am in here a lot, like we talked about. And just really, really privileged and proud to be here. And again, just to the department, you have my utmost best effort all the time. It may not make sense. It may seem weird, but I appreciate this opportunity to reach out and have the department here where we are in our discussion. And just appreciate your efforts on the foundation, and Joe being the director, taking us in a good direction. Appreciate everything they're doing, and all the collaborative efforts to take care of our folks. It's the most important thing we've got are our people. So much appreciated. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The ball, thanks for the shout out. If you want to see Chief Endaya get out of his gold badge and black uniform and dance on the dance floor, that's going to happen again, I'm sure. And again, I appreciate you being on. It was nice to be able to interview you. I never thought I'd be able to do that in my career, so I appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you again, and much appreciated. Thanks, Jason.
Let me start out by saying just wow, what a great podcast. Probably our best one to date due to the interview skills of the guy who, no, I'm just kidding, of course. Peter's out on business this time. He should be back with us. I missed a lot of his off-the-cuff questions that he usually brings up with the guests. But Chief Endaya was really, really great to hear his ability to just say what's going on in the department and not keep his cards close to the vest, but really open up and share with where he sees the department's future, what he sees as far as specifics for where stations are going, where engines are going to go, that he does realize some of the call volume and the hardship that presents to some of the crews, and that he's really diligently working on fixing some of that stuff. It's good to hear that. It's also good to hear that he understands the mental health aspect of being a firefighter and that he supports that as well. Hope to see you guys all at the ball. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.